Hi everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we're doing a full review and test of Prismacolor watercolor pencils. I have the 12 color set, and since I use watercolor and watercolor pencils all the time, I wanted to really break this down for you, so you can see how they perform and decide if they're worth it. And by the way, in my next video, I'll show you how to paint red roses with these pencils, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that one. Alright, let's get into it. So here's what we're going to test. First, we'll try them dry to see how smooth the core feels, whether they scratch the paper, and how well they build up in layers. Then, we'll swatch all 12 colors dry and activated with water, so we can see both the pigment strength and how well they dissolve. We'll also test dry blending and gradients, sharpening and breakage, and layering after activation, because details matter. And finally, we'll compare two different brushes, a nylon water brush pen and a soft nature brush. I'm using squirrel hair. Alright, this set comes in a metal tin case, which is super nice and sturdy. The pencils are pretty simple, but I do like the rich one has the color name printed on it. For this test, I'll be using 100% cotton hot press paper. Alright, let's start with the dry test. I'm starting with a quick dry test to see how smoothly the pencil goes down. Even just from the sound, you can probably tell it glides pretty nicely. Now, let's test layering. I'm doing one layer first, then building up a second and third layer right on top. And honestly, the color builds up really well. You can clearly see the difference between each layer and it still stays smooth. So dry layering is definitely a win. Now I'm going to swatch the full palette, all 12 colors. First dry and then we'll activate them with water. This way you can see both the original pigment and the watercolor effect after activation. Before we activate everything, let's quick check sharpening. Okay, this sharpened really well and didn't crumble or snap. That's great, because watercolor pencils breaking during sharpening is so annoying. Now I'm pressing a little harder and the core still holds up. Now let's activate the swatches and see what happens. Starting with the light blue, and I can already see something important. It doesn't dissolve completely. That's not ideal, but here's the thing. Watercolor pencils behave very differently on different papers. So if you ever test a pencil and don't like the result, try another paper first, because that can change everything. But I will say this, the pigment looks bright. I really like the saturation. Now let's test blending. I'm activating the dry gradient we made earlier, blending red into blue. When these mix, they create a deeper tone, kind of a brownish purple shade. Now let's do a more complex blend using multiple colors. I'm layering red and orange, then adding yellow over the orange and a tiny bit of brown over the red. Now let's activate. Look how the pigment starts flowing. That actually looks really watercolor-like. Even though the pencils don't dissolve perfectly, the wash still feels soft, and that's what we want. Now I want to compare brushes. I'm going to sketch 2 little strawberries and test activation using a nylon water brush pen and a soft nature brush. I'm layering pink first, then adding red on top, just to see how nicely the colors blend dry. Then I add a little green stem and a hint of light green. Now let's activate. First, dip the nylon water brush pen. It activates pretty easily and the water flow is nice. Now let's switch to the soft brush. Wow, this instantly looks closer to real watercolor. The pigment melts more smoothly, the transition feels softer, and who looks is just more natural. I'm also lifting a little pigment to make a highlight. So honestly, I already know my favorite. If I keep using these pencils, it's 100% going to be with a soft natural brush. Now I'll activate the leaves. And yes, at this point my strawberries are starting to look like tiny tomatoes. So I'm adding just a few white details and that immediately makes them read as berries. Now let's test something really important, layering details on top after everything dries. I'm adding a second layer to deepen shadows and add depth. And yes, they layer really well. That's a great sign. Now let's go back to our dry gradient. I'm adding more pencil on top and reactivating it. It reactivates beautifully with the natural brush. So yes, it doesn't dissolve 100%, but the final effect is still super watercolor-like. To finish, I'm adding a little splatter while it's wet, because that's such a classic watercolor look. Alright, everything is fully dry now. You can see the colors got slightly lighter once dry, but that's totally normal. Even regular watercolor looks more vibrant when it's wet. Overall, the colors still look bright and honestly, I'm impressed. Alright, let's sum it up. These Prismacolor watercolor pencils are really vibrant, soft, and they feel great to use, especially for dry layering. That part honestly surprised me in the best way. When it comes to water activation, they don't fully dissolve with a water brush pen. But with a soft natural brush, the results look much more watercolor-like and blend beautifully. Overall, I'm very happy with them, and I'll definitely keep using them in future tutorials. Have you ever tried these pencils? If yes, I'd love to hear what you think. Share your experience in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this review, make sure to subscribe for more watercolor pencil videos. See you next time.